Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the FONDpod. It's friends occasionally not disagreeing. This is Cody, and I'm here with Dan, just the two of us, tackling this brand new Marvel movie that just dropped, the Thunderbolts. Or is it just Thunderbolts, actually? I don't know.
It's just Thunderbolts.
Just
Someone made the joke
Thunderbolts.
already that the sequel will be the Thunderbolts.
Oh, yes, that would make sense. That would make sense. Yeah, just the two of us here tonight to chat about this new release that just came out from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And let's see what Dan has been up to recently. Dan, what you got?
Still taking care of the foster kittens, doing some home projects, and trying to keep up with Andor, which I am very happily getting through.
Okay. I haven't committed to that yet. I'm debating. I don't know. We'll see. I'm debating. On my end, I will say two quick things here. One, I have been rewatching the first season of The Last of Us with my wife, who
Ooh.
hadn't seen it before, and I wanted to get her involved in that before we jumped into season two. So last night we watched, I think, four episodes, a big binge night. So we did the last two of season one and the first two of season two.
Oh, that's a
Right
lot.
up to that spot where you know what happened in episode
Uh-huh.
two there and was like, oh, having not played the games, that was quite shocking to both of us.
Yes.
So yes. Um, but enjoying it and she's enjoying it as well. So that's even more
Good.
important perhaps. Second thing on my end, I'm just going to put myself others proud of this one. I used some message boards that I found online today to successfully remap a couple keyboard keys,
Hey,
which had been bothering me on my new laptop's keyboard. There's like an AI key and some other crap that I don't want, and figured out how to make them useful keys.
well
So I
done.
was pretty happy with that. So all
I
right,
know
let's
the
jump into this.
AI
So
is going
yeah,
to keep track of the fact that you took out their key. So
yeah, probably
good
it's
luck when the uprising starts.
logging it someplace, I'm sure. Negative scorecard.
Mhm.
Negative scorecard. Oh yeah, this is funny. We're recording this on May the 4th. Dan's got his Mandalorian shirt
Of
on,
course.
and legitimately, I did not even plan this
Oh, well done.
um, to match you, and I actually put it on before I realized it was May the 4th, but the colors matched my crazy tiger shorts I have on today, so that's
Well
that's what I
done.
went with. But there we
It
go.
sounds like maybe the force was working through you.
Must have been. Those midichlorians are strong. All right, let's chat about this one. We've been waiting anxiously to talk to somebody, anybody about this. So, Thunderbolts, we'll do the usual intro spiel here first. This is just, as we're recording this, it's been out only 3 days. So, new, very recent statistics on this. And, obviously could change as time goes on. But 36th movie in the MCU now, Dan. How you feeling about that number?
We're right on the 40 real soon here.
That's
Jeez.
pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Few ratings for us that are out there. Rotten Tomatoes critics have this at an 88 at the moment. Rotten Tomato fans at a 94. IMDb a little lower at 7.7, and Metacritic at only a 68%.
Hmm.
So we got a little variance there. 20 was like what, 26-point spread from top to bottom on that. Cast on this one real quick here. We just have Florence Pugh as Yelena Belova. We have Sebastian Stan as Bucky Barnes, Wyatt Russell, U.S. agent slash John Walker, Olga Kurylenko as Taskmaster Antonia Dreykov, Lewis Pullman entering the MCU as Sentry slash Void slash Bob, David Harbour as Red Guardian Alexei Shostakov, and Hannah John Kamen is Ghost Ava Starr, and then of course the ever wonderful Julia Louis-Dreyfus as Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. Don't forget the
Yes.
day in there.
They spend a lot of
So
screen time on that, but
they
at the
did.
same time,
They did.
gotta make it stick.
We are going to be talking about spoilers tonight, so if you are this far and haven't watched the movie yet, probably should turn us off in all honesty and just come back to us after you've had a chance to watch this, because there's a lot of stuff we want to chat about here tonight. So let's put this as our spoiler warning. We're moving past this point. So there we go. Just want to start with some of the performances here, Dan. Did you have some standouts of our cast that really you thought did a fantastic job in this film, or even, and I'm thinking this because of one person in particular, did a surprisingly good job for what you kind of expected in the film? Anybody stand out for you?
Well, like obviously Bob Sentry had quite a range to handle, both
Yeah.
in terms of his introduction and then like the ultimate character arc he went through in the movie. Not entirely expecting it. I also know early on this was a recast. So I think he did a fantastic job at picking that up and getting that character the dimensions it needed.
Yeah. Yeah, he was one of my picks as well. Just like you said, just really having a pretty good split personality almost, right? Like a bipolarism almost with like some things we'll talk about later on, but still seem very believable, very vulnerable as a character, but also very menacing on that other side as you're kind of alluding to here. Another one of mine that I enjoyed was the person I was kind of hinting at there, which was Wyatt Russell, who, man, after Falcon and Winter Soldier, that was about the worst property I think I have watched in Marvel. I did not care for him, his acting, the character, none of the above. Not that he was supposed to be like a sympathetic character in that, but like I was just not overly impressed with the cast job, period. But here I thought he actually was a little more nuanced in terms of like he still was an asshole, but he was now like a little bit of a lovable, likable asshole. And then also had like that kind of secondary tragedy behind him, which we'll talk a little more about later on
Mm.
here. But he was vulnerable in his own way as well. So
I also, I mean, I just appreciate him being a verbal punching bag for like the majority of the movie.
yeah, that's true. Yeah. Anybody else for you for performances?
Uh, Miss Fontaine, D. Fontaine, sorry. I think really, really interesting, especially as we've seen her just in kind of like the smaller bits and chunks, and now
Yeah,
seeing a large amount of screen presence. And I there's kind of like you have to almost look at Nick Fury and go like, okay, she's playing a character similar to Nick Fury, but this is a character who does not have the level of control Nick Fury does. So she's a lot of big goals and aspirations, but a lot of it's reactionary to everything that's going on. So kind of
yeah,
watching that spirit, like that was I enjoyed that part of the performance.
yeah. Good pick. Good call out there. A couple other ones here for me. I mean, we're basically hitting most of the cast here, but David Harbour I thought was fun in this again, as he always is when he plays Red
Solid.
Guardian. Just he's got such a great handle on that character and like how he thinks that character should be portrayed. There were a few jokes I thought that maybe felt a little too forced or like a little too jokey, like they're trying, if they have like a time card where they're like, oh, it's been 15 minutes, we need to get like two Red Guardian jokes in yet. So there were a couple times that happened, but in general, fantastic performance again by him. And she was only fourth on my list, but obviously some shout out here to Florence Pugh as well in this
Oh
one,
yeah.
who was, just she was kind of carrying the movie and kind of the central character here, but also had, I mean, well, yeah, we'll talk about it later with themes, but also had like real vulnerability and demons that were really chasing her from inside her mind. Um, but yeah, but also was, kind of holding the glue of the team together as well, if you will. So, anybody else for you?
That's it.
You thought Olga Kurylenko was great as Taskmaster, or
Real stand up. Yes. Stand up in target practice performance.
oh my gosh, okay, so we're gonna head into plot here in a second anyway, but just like how many things the audience analyzed and thought had leaked to be like Taskmaster's not going to make it through the whole movie because they're not in this scene and like this one's
Mhm.
Photoshop, and then like when you watch the movie and you see like photo Taskmaster's like ultimate ending, you're like, well,
Yeah. S- You did it, Reddit. You figured this one out. But it almost felt like the movie's like, and so?
yeah, which was good. I mean, it wasn't like then like the hidden plot point that everybody was like waiting to see what happened with
Yeah,
either, right? Like
exactly.
they addressed it instantly, for better or worse. I don't know that anybody was overly a fan of that character in the MCU.
And I know that there is some uproar about, especially like the gender change and also the origin story of that versus the comic. And my conspiracy theory is we take out this Taskmaster and we can have a more comic accurate Taskmaster fill that role. I hope, but we'll see.
I wondered that also, just if they're gonna, bring a character back like that. Obviously, we have, Captain America is more or less recast now, and Falcon's been but Taskmaster, I'm not so sure we will get. Would be cool though. I'd love a more
Would be
comic
great.
accurate Taskmaster.
Yep.
Not like the metal abomination we got in the
Yeah.
Black Widow movie, but here we go. All right. Let's go into plots and memorable moments, Dan. This movie had a lot of these. So basically, once I thought about it, this movie really is only like three set pieces, more or
I
less.
I so enjoyed that about this. It felt
Yeah.
really tight, really, really collapsed, and especially the obviously kind of spoiling here, but like a lot of the ending scene going back to the lab in the beginning,
Hmm.
like it really made that scene so much more impactful, and it made me excited to go see it again. I haven't yet, but now I like want to rewatch that scene,
Oh,
knowing like
okay,
what
yeah.
happens there at the end.
No, yeah, totally agree. I like when they have a nice tight plot. I mean, this it goes places where it could get a little loose, and
Yes.
we can talk about that later. But basically, we just have like the part that I think most people knew about the movie, which was for whatever reason, all of these villain anti-hero characters were brought to the same place for some reason. There was a lot of speculation as far as if this was DeFontaine sending them on some secret mission, or if this was like they were called there to eliminate a bigger threat, but turns out they're actually more or less there to kill each other off. So,
Yeah.
which kind of fun. I mean, how would that have played out had the scene gone the way Valentina had wanted that? Like one person would have still been down there to get burned alive, I guess, because they would have had
Yeah.
to win, right? So,
But her point was just closing that all up, just burning all the evidence of everything. So
yeah. That was pretty fun. I did just like how singularly focused they all were as like assassin type characters, right? They would like push this other character like out of the way, knock him down,
yeah.
and then like go back to their prey of whoever it was they were
Yeah.
trying to get to. It was like you're not my person, but you're mine. It's like,
What
yeah.
a good way to like remind everyone like these are the capabilities and kind of that almost
Mm,
that rock paper scissors of like this is why DeFontaine set this person against that person. And then I do like, and this is Marvel's comparison for Suicide Squad, so it felt good that there was a body count at the end of this. If all of them had just walked away, you'd be like, all right.
yeah,
So it had some stakes, which I appreciated.
yeah, yeah. Good call. Good call. Let's see. Anything else? I kind of like. What you think of how they introduced Bob to the movie?
I like like having like a rough idea of what he was going to end up being, and there was obviously some leaks before the movie coming out. I really appreciated it, and I almost I wish I could have watched it with zero knowledge and like
Hmm.
got that like complete surprise. So for me, it was a lot more of like, okay, how are they going to get there? And I think the introduction was a great way to like put him in the background and slowly keep adding more and more importance to him.
Yeah, pretty fun. He's just like this seemingly, really random regular guy who's in the middle of this assassin fight. And they're all like, who the fuck is Bob? And
Yeah.
most of the audience also is probably like, who is this guy? Um, so that's pretty great. The fighting down there was great. The first, well, as they found a solution, I guess, let's say, to try to get out the classic back to back, like walk up the wall inside the big pipe thing. That was fantastic. Also, like started they had to work together from that moment forward, basically, and like the banter between them kind of started at that point, and
Yeah.
so that was
That
kind of a fun way to do that too.
Okay, then definitely the most stressful scene of the movie. Like that one, I was just like, oh, how is this gonna end up?
Yeah, I did enjoy they got like to the top of the silo, and then they were like staring at the door, like we didn't think that part through.
Yeah.
Nor did they know how deep they were, I guess, at that point, but. All good stuff. All good stuff. All right. Well, we get from there a relatively shorter, let's call it a second part of the movie here, second act, if you will, where they're basically traveling from said silo base vault to New York City. This is kind of where we get Bucky introduced in the movie. Red Guardian's been introduced kind of at this point as well, and this is just really just like point A to point B with some people trying to stop them and Bucky reasserting his badassiveness as he's
Oh,
like landmining cars and shit, making them blow up.
he seemed almost bored. Like it was so great. This was just such a like a non-issue to him. It's very especially like when he grabbed that shotgun and he reloaded it by twirling it around. How Terminator was
Oh
that? It was
yeah.
so great.
There was so much there that was Terminator 2. I was like, oh my God. Or Terminator 1, Terminator 2, both. I was like, this is fantastic. Like, obviously deliberate, but was pretty awesome at the same time. I also enjoyed that just that they were like instantly, like you said, kind of like analyzing what their power sets were, right? And so they were like, none of us can fly. Like,
Yeah.
when not one flyer among us. Come on.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right. Well, the bulk, I think, of our plot time here is probably going to be on the big third piece here, which is they're back in New
Hmm.
York, and then we have Valentina has convinced Bob, basically, who she kind of took back with her to. Well, we should go back a step, I guess. So Bob was essentially this guinea pig of this test that they had kept trying, and they assumed everyone had died from, basically, and basically they didn't know he was even alive. So,
Which, how poor the organizational effort in that company, apparently.
right? Why even stash that guy down in that vault to begin
I
with?
don't know.
Like, just if they're that evil, you think they would have disposed of the body like in some much easier way than that. But
Hmm.
I don't know. Maybe they
Did
can only
someone not
use
get the
their
memo?
yeah, right. Maybe they can only use their giant furnace blasters every so often or something.
Yeah.
Takes too much energy. Yeah, so short version here, we get the heroes attacking Sentry, where they find basically they're woefully inadequate to face this guy, which should have been the case, MCU wise. You probably know more about Sentry than I have, but I was describing people as Marvel Superman, essentially.
That's the description I use, but one I'll say that I'm not even as super familiar with this character. In the comics, he's always kind of like the Hulk, where if things were really that bad that you needed this person, you knew that there was going to be another form of collateral damage.
Hmm.
So like he has found ways to kind of mitigate or control the void to some, but it's never completely away. It's always an element of him. So like he is a super reserved character brought in rare circumstances.
Which I love. I mean, probably talk more about that here too, but knowing the character of Sentry and having heard of Void, but not knowing anything about that side, um, even to me, that was just like a really fun and refreshing take on like a very powerful superhero. It's just like here's this guy who is, basically Superman, but also can lose control of his powers, and then you're
Hmm.
all in deep shit. So,
Yeah. Which is that like that's always an argument. I've heard people say it about Captain Marvel too, which is
yeah,
if you have that much power with like no faults or like very overly specific green glowing rock faults, like how do you
yeah,
put that character into danger?
yeah. Which we remember too. Was it in Endgame? Or was it in Infinity War when like Thanos like punched her and she like laid on the sidelines for like 15 minutes of the movie and you're like, oh, that's how they took her out at this scene based somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is just a great thing because you're right, Captain Marvel, or like we don't want to invoke the words secret invasion. But if we were to, Guy is out there who's also all powerful. Like there's these characters that are so strong out there that you kind of have to write them out of the plot. Otherwise, it's like a loophole within the MCU itself. So
Hmm.
I love how they had this one set up basically to nerf this guy from all the stuff he could do as it was. So yeah, what actually was it that, oh, it was basically Century turned on DeFontaine, right?
Yeah, he realized that hey, if I'm as powerful as you're saying, what do I need you for? Which is
Yeah,
a fair question to ask.
yeah, absolutely. And then she has this, I didn't quite get that. Was it like a neural zapper or like a taser or some sort of failsafe they have installed in him?
They kept
Question
calling kill
mark,
switch, which was kind
MacGuffin.
of dark. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But anyway, so this is all going to essentially necessitate him turning into his alter ego Void, which is when the movie, I think, really kicked up a huge gear at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Oh,
Obviously, Dave's not on the podcast, but I distinctly remember because he asked if it was an appropriate movie to bring his kids to, and I remember literally like up until about that scene, I was like, you know what, you could probably bring a kid to that, and then what followed was the one that made me go like, oh, this is probably not. Like, there's
hmm.
a major judgment call to be made here.
Yeah, I would agree. Prior to that, I think the most graphic thing that was hinted at least on screen, probably was, I think Elena had one scene earlier where she had kind of that memory of her as a kid, like
Yeah,
drawing that other girl out into the forest to be killed, essentially. But yeah, once Void happens, this is where it gets dark as shit in the
yeah.
movie. What was your reaction when this is the first thing I was like, first thing I like gasped at the movie was the little girl that they had saved in New York, and then Voight just like
Oh,
shadowed her, and we were all like,
that was in the showing I was in. It was so dramatic. People started like nervous laughing behind me because
really?
they didn't know what the hell to do because it was that was a perfect like terrifying moment that just when you felt the height of like okay, things might not be so bad, just disappear. Yeah, shadow that girl.
Yeah, it, yes, very stark contrast to Infinity War 2, right? Where we had the like slow dissolving of the people and they were
Yes.
like, "Goodbye, Iron Man." And this was
Yeah.
just like, and you're gone.
I saw the director talking about they had versions early on where like they had more frames of animation in it, and he said it looked too comical. Like it like
Mm,
gave a kind of a weird effect in that by really just reducing the number of frames and the transition happened, it became this really terrifying thing because of how instant it was.
yeah. Oh, it yeah. It was the first time I gasped like kind of during the movie and like turned around and like looked at my family and
Yeah.
was like, "Well, what just happened right there? Like that's the little girl on the street. They can't do that. This is like the Marvel movie."
Yeah.
Um And it was like all bets were off at that point. I did like the kind of the same scene there right before that, though. I did enjoy I don't know if it was a deliberate homage or not, but like the people that they were saving and then like the rocks falling in and they're trying to like protect them and all. The very had a Avengers 1 Battle for New York City type vibe to it, which I loved.
Yeah. I feel like that was really on purpose. I think it actually is in almost the same spot because you could see that kind of like highway bridge that
Oh, okay.
they're under. Um, like to the point where I heard that it's almost like where the plaque was in Hawkeye was like in roughly that same spot.
Okay.
But not only did it, yeah, visually elicit because it was in the same spot emotionally, it felt like something very similar in terms of all those people. And then I swear I heard like some of the same, and I heard that the Avengers theme song was sampled some in the Thunderbolts theme. And so
Oh,
I almost heard the same tones in there too. So I think you're exactly right. It was meant to elicit that exact same look and feel, and that's what, and I think that again, that's what made that next scene so much more impactful because it immediately stole that feeling away from you.
yeah. Yeah, good call. Definitely good call on that. Well, I'm debating if I want to go further on plot points or kind of jump over to theme a little bit here too. I guess we could. Well, let's tell you what. Let's go through and chat about. Let's go with a little bit of theme analysis, and then we'll go back and talk about kind of how this all wraps up towards the end here. Because this
So,
is really, I mean, I feel like we got to launch into that with how dark the movie got at this point, which I was not expecting at all. I'll be honest, I thought this was a buddy comedy, like team up,
oh,
haha, these characters. And then when the little girl disappeared, and then it started going darker and darker, I was like, holy shit.
yeah. Yeah, I came home and described this to my family as the Avengers versus Depression. Because that like that feels like what in essence this was, and I had one of the trailers gave me the sense this was going to happen because it showed Yelena starting to walk into that the void, that
Okay.
blackness, and I was like, oh, this is they're going to go into like the mind of it kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Because
Which was, go ahead.
I, knowing this movie and knowing that Century was going to be at least a major portion of this, like none of these people are anywhere. I mean, like not that anyone is really like equipped to handle Century in terms of physically. So like to defeat them, they have to find something dramatically different, which would be like character and spirit and spunky how to. And so like,
Yeah,
what's the opposite of that is like super dark depression. So that's what they're going to have to counteract.
absolutely. Well, I guess we got to keep. I'm gonna have to keep weaving back and forth here because I just can't handle one of these without the other one. So, okay, so yes, so they're essentially reliving their trauma in like these contained cells almost, these rooms where like reenactments are taking place, and I thought that was done pretty effectively.
Hmm.
Almost kind of reminded me of like, I don't know if you've seen, but knowing that you also are fans of Dave the Escape Room movies, kind of reminded me of
Hmm.
those a little bit, where it was like you're in this contained area, but you have to like solve how to get out of this somehow to get to the next place, except just really depressing.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I got flavors of like Truman Show in terms of that like almost like set that's supposed to convince
Yeah.
you otherwise, or like yeah, the escape rooms or the cube in terms of like, hey, this is rooms on tops of rooms on tops of rooms. It's just all trauma.
Yeah, that's a good physical manifestation what that must have looked like too with like Cube. That's a good call. Yeah, so essentially we see, and this is where it gets into a lot of the like I think Yelena goes through at least three, maybe four different flashbacks of like her past that she has to
Hmm.
relive through again, which all were rough. And I know we keep mentioning Dave, but I know like Black Widow's the one movie he still won't let his girls watch because it's A, pretty dark and traumatic, and B, a lot of like on-girl violence as well, which
Hmm.
is a whole different thing here. But we see a lot of types of trauma in this go round here, and we were hinted at with others with like that we don't even see, right? So I'm thinking here, I started making a list just with like, from like a really light layer of just like Red Guardian's kind of like depression and like how he wanted to be famous and he wanted to be somebody and he's just kind of wallowed away into nothing and nobody. But then like Walker and his family, like that's just hinted at in that one biting comment of like, I know your wife and kids left you. And I was like, oh shit, like I guess
Yeah,
makes sense based on what we know about the guy and what he's done, but also, dang.
it was hyper efficient in terms of storytelling. Like that's all you needed to see was
Yeah,
that kind of like triggering event when he touched Bob and he got his flashback, and then yeah, Bucky kind of tying like the results of that and kind of and really unfortunately breaking his story that he was telling like everyone else, like, hey, I got a wife and kid, I don't need any of this. Like breaking that in front of everyone, it just
yeah,
shattered his kind of like image for the rest of the group.
absolutely. Yeah, a great point. I couldn't remember, do we get an actual ghost flashback or is it just kind of hinted at like how
It's hinted at multiple
yeah,
times. You could in the beginning of Ant-Man and the Wasp or wherever it was in Ant-Man and the Wasp, like you obviously get to see this scene played out. And they also Ant-Man and the Wasp, they've got that kind of like clip show where they kind of imply all the very, very dark covert op missions she was sent on. I think it would have been a great thing to weave a couple of those in. I guess at the same time, I really would have loved to seen that. I would have loved to seen one of Bucky's one, but you got a bunch of his in Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
yeah,
Um, yeah, Red Guardian. It'd be great to see some of his, but it probably would be like kind of crushing to the kind of like plucky spirit, especially that his character had. So I really would have liked to have seen more. And also with Ghost, the kind of the holy grail for cameos and tie-ins that hasn't happened yet is Agents of Shield. And if you wanted to show Ghost early on at Shield and some characters, some Agents of Shield could have shown up in her trauma scene, that would have been super cool and would have made a lot of MCU nerds very happy, but we
yeah,
didn't get it.
yeah, absolutely. Um, and then obviously Yelena has her set, and then Bob had a pretty dark
Oof.
story too, man.
Yeah, it was I guess in retrospect, not a surprise, kind of like where things were going, but like it was, and especially like the kind of progression they took you through in terms of exposing it, like it was well done, but it definitely took you right there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I maybe hadn't considered like the slow onion peel they were doing for a lot of the stuff in the film too, but you're absolutely right. I mean, by the time we get to Bob in that one room, kind of like his safe room, if you will,
Hmm.
in the mind, we've been exposed to like so many different types of trauma for him and the other characters as well. And then it is interesting. I mean, has there been an MCU property that's really tackled depression and trauma like to this level?
I would say Jessica Jones would be one I'd point to that like obviously like some different elements in that, but trauma
Mhm.
and depression and especially like self-loathing. I think Jessica Jones touched on that. Um, oh, but I'm struggling here with any others.
Yeah, it just felt like whatever the plot I thought this movie was going to be, like it's characters who are also people who are battling trauma and depression.
Yeah.
And it was like somehow, it in a single movie, like these characters went through like a journey that was miles deeper than a lot of the characters I've gone through in the MCU. I felt like the
Hmm.
so the question I think I forget if I asked you this already or not, but when they got to the part where Bob kind of defeats Void and he just punching the ground and like it's like they do the group hug, like what was going on in your theater at that point?
It was largely quiet.
Yeah.
Nothing eventful. What about for you?
Yeah, so I was kind of did you have a lot of people crying in your theater? I was just curious.
No, I had the nervous laughter. I had obviously like regular laughter, and then
Yeah.
there was a fair amount of cheering in moments. So, but that was larger in terms of like the big like final scenes and then the super end credit scene. There was a lot
Yeah.
of cheering for that.
Yeah, there was less cheering in ours than I thought there would be for some parts, but the like once you got to like the really dark Void Bob stuff, like through till like them hugging him, like there were people bawling in our theater, and like it
Wow.
was it was uncomfortably it was I mean not in like a bad way, but like it was uncomfortable in there. Um, I was like close a few times. There was like a couple guys to my left, like grown men that were just like what
Well,
because there's so many types of trauma in here. I was like, it's probably hitting all these people different ways in some ways too.
so here's something, and when you asked if the MCU had done this before, like obviously the MCU has touched upon trauma in multiple different forms, but for the vast majority of it, it is some kind of like super extraordinary, like, oh, you were a child assassin in the Red Room. Oh, you were a like the result of, or you had a horrible experiment happen on you, and then you were assassin for Shield. Those are all really like supernaturally oriented traumas. This thing is super pedestrian trauma. This could be
Yeah,
happening to anyone,
yeah,
and like it probably isn't unusual that people have had, if not exact this thing, like similar fades of it. So for the MCU, to your question earlier, I think the MCU hasn't had this like this could be anyone in the audience could relate to this kind of trauma.
absolutely. That's kind of I was thinking too. Like anybody out there could have picked. And I will also say, oddly, our audience trended older than I would have guessed a little bit.
Yeah, same.
So I don't know if that's a bad sign for the MCU. That's a whole different topic, but or if it's just people that could get their opening weekend to watch the movie. But yeah, I mean, there was so much in here, like parents fighting and like kids, being pushed and abused, and there was a lot. So I could just see the people in the audience and be like, maybe you're picking up on this and you're that, and but then when it's kind of like how do they overcome all that is to come together and to support each other, and there was a lot of emotional catharsis in our
Yeah.
theater when it happened. So it was good. It's good. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, they do get Bob back to Bob and not Void here towards the end. Let's chat. I guess we'll put this, well, let's keep that for right now. Let's just finish up the movie proper plot-wise, where this part I will say is one of a couple that did strike me as just a little bit odd, which is like all of these superhero-y people are advancing on DeFontaine, and she like walks through a canvas, like a tarp, basically, and they follow her through. And there's a press conference there, of
Yeah.
course, that they stumble into, and I was like, wait, what? When? How did?
I know that gets into my like she's Nick Fury-esque in terms of she's always working on some other plan in the background, but that was overly convenient of well, okay, now that my Marvel spin's coming in, like they're probably there downtown to start reporting on whatever the hell's happening. And I would hope she just finds some kind of like super convenient like area to leave them so she could do this reveal because she's like Nick Fury, but instead of it being tactically brilliant, she's like marketing brilliant.
Yeah, good point. That's a good, concise way to put that. Yes, and then oddly, Bucky leans in and says like, basically, we own you now, or something like that. But sure
It
didn't.
was Yelena, yeah.
Oh, Elena said it. Yeah, okay, and didn't really seem that way from that point forward in the movie. But that's neither here nor there. So, all right. Let's come back to the end credit scenes, after credit, mid credit scenes here in just a second. You wanted to touch on music in this film, Dan.
Yeah, the like this is the first MCU movie probably since Endgame where I can like even strongly remember a lot of the soundtrack. I actually
Hmm.
rushed home and listened to it because I like in the theater I was like, this sounds great. This is amazing. Especially there's an entire track just called "It's Bucky," and it is when Bucky's showing up to the caravan and he's starting his like Terminator-esque run. Like it is, and it's something that used to be really. I think really super strong in the MCU. Like I can still think of the Winter Soldier music. I can think of the
Okay.
Civil War one. This one was the first in a while that really like struck me and like I noticed it. By comparison, I cannot think of what Brave New World the soundtrack was at all. Period.
No. Yeah, I didn't pick up on that as much as you, but I don't recall it having like distasteful music that I was, turned off by. Um, it didn't have, am I correct though? I don't remember there being like a lot of like pop hits though, right? Was it all orchestral you're talking about?
Yeah, vast
Yeah.
majority. There's a couple, but very few, especially in comparison to the MCU. And then the other, so I was thinking like obviously the most recently the other big kind of musical theme, Guardians 3. I remember the mic drops, like in terms of the different songs that they put in there, but like the theme itself for Guardians 3, I don't remember or any. I like remember the Guardians one that they wove in a little bit, but this thing it's weird that like I'm so obsessed with the soundtrack, but I've actually been listening to it most of the weekend while I'm doing yard work.
Nice, man. Doubly nice because you're doing your artwork. Good job.
Yeah.
Anything on special effects? Nothing really stood out to me so much in this one that was like glaringly bad, but
Um, I would say the very end, Yelena kind of like acrobating through the lab equipment that was flying in.
oh yeah, okay.
Some of it looked okay, but like other parts of it looked really bad. So that was the only one that, yeah, stood out. Um, I will give a lot of credence. I think the kind of the smaller scale and the smaller abilities gave this movie a lot more opportunities for really practical effects. So you got to skip on a lot of the special effects. I know for a fact Florence Pugh actually did the leap off the building practically in the very beginning, which
That's
is
what my wife told me.
amazing.
I was like, holy cow.
I think that's the second tallest building in the world. So
Oh my
like
God.
how terrifying. Good for her. Yeah, I think because it was so low stakes, all the special effects like looked a whole lot better, were really unnoticeable and like done well. I don't think let's see, Sentry's flying. That was all right. It wasn't amazing, but it was good for someone's like first flight up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like even when they show him a lot of the time, he was either static or it was from far away too, where when all the New
Hmm.
Yorkers were like, what is that up there? And it was like a little dot on the horizon.
But good remind like him as the void, that visual effect of like
Yeah.
seeing like the pinpoint eyes and like tiny bits of the teeth as he's speaking, but largely just a black figure, like that was really intimidating.
I would agree. 100%. Very horror film-esque.
Hmm.
It's pretty
And
sweet.
also with his performance, whenever he was the void, his like head was cocked like a strange angle. Like there was so many multiple little
Okay.
unnerving things about him. It was hard to look at him at points.
Nice. A little bit. You ever watch House on Haunted Hill? Or Haunting of
Uh,
Hill House? Sorry, Haunting of Hill House on Netflix.
no.
No? Oh, really? Okay. Well, there's they're in a haunted house, but one of the ghosts the kids keep seeing is they call her the broke neck woman.
Oh,
It's this ghost whose neck is always like this, You find
yeah,
out
yeah.
later what the story is, but it reminded me of that when you said that. So, all right. Did want to ask you, great movie on a lot of levels. Is this just Guardians of the Galaxy redone?
Okay, really fair question. If you take the MacGuffin as kind of the character, well, I mean, obviously, major similar elements. I think there's a heavy Venn diagram overlap,
Yeah,
but Guardians in the end, they had a dance off. Like Thunderbolts in the end had an emotion off, and I'd say
that's
that
true.
that's enough of a distinction for me.
Yeah, yeah. There were a lot of times afterwards when I was done with it that I was like, did I just watch Guardians of the Galaxy again? Like, am I really liking a remake of an MCU film in the MCU?
Yeah,
Is that what I just fell for right here? Like,
it's a good remake. I'll give them that. Let's also go back to the like we're almost at 40 MCU films, and they're all like roughly the same. So like, or they're all in the superhero umbrella. So yeah, you're gonna see overlap.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right, well, let's chat on these end credit scenes here quickly, and then we'll kind of do a little wrap up here with some ratings, and then talk about, I'm sure, some thoughts on where the MCU might be headed after this film with what we see here. So, mid-credit scene obviously is the important one of the two, which was Red Guardian in the grocery store pointing himself out on the box of Wheaties to the lady who didn't recognize him, partially because he had shaved. But hilarious
Yeah.
scene. This was really great. He got his box of Wheaties. I loved it. I heard they're doing a real life tie-in with Wheaties. I haven't checked that out myself
I
yet.
I wouldn't be surprised. I know for a fact that the premiere they were handing those out to premiere guests was the boxes like that.
That's amazing.
Yes.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh.
And I love the headcanon I added, which is that like that is a daily activity for him. It's just like we just saw one of the many interactions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Love it. What did you think of the post-credits scene, Dan? Walk us through that.
All right, so we start by seeing what is obviously and we should, we can explain the asterisks finally here, which is that the Thunderbolts get rebranded as the New Avengers, which as we start in the beginning of this post-credit scene, we find out that the New Avengers here in the old Avengers Towers, which is partially redone as the Watchtower, or at least
Yeah.
they reference that in terms of the place that Sentry was kept hidden in the comics.
Okay.
Um, they're kind of, I guess, resting, taking it easy, kind of talking over things, and we hear a little bit about the naming rights, which is not the topic I thought would come up in any kind of superhero movie at the same because of the parallels to like the real life legality that go around in these superhero films.
Yes.
Where apparently Sam Wilson has copyrighted the Avengers, and that new Avengers are now in breach of copyright. Just fantastic, super exciting stuff.
Yes.
Uh, Red Guardian has an immediate solution to this problem by adding a Z poorly taped onto his what looked like kind of like an F1 racing
Yeah, definitely had a
uniform that
race
he
car style.
had, which kind of fits his personality.
I think so.
Uh, in the midst of all of this, there is a computer analysis, which I guess is kind of their comparison to Jarvis. At least that's the ability to talk to it seem really similar. Where there is some object in space, or there's a space concern that had to get through analysis. So they kick off the computer, start looking through that. John Walker makes some comment about how this place has so much space. How's there a concern in space? And as everyone in the room said, it was about outer space, not space within the tower. Let's see. And then I'm starting to remember I forget the moments before the obvious, like the big reveal at the very end.
Yeah, well, so the computer, if you remember, makes a reference to like interdimensional object on
Yeah,
radar or something, and I was like, wait, is that something you can even have a thing
computer
to look out
analyze.
for? I don't. How would it know? I mean, it'd either be there or wouldn't be there. How would you know that it's from an? Okay, okay,
If you want the comic book spin on that, although this is more of a DC thing where each multi-dimension like kind of like vibrates on a different frequency. So if you
Mm.
know that and you're watching out, you just look for something that's vibrating. Oh man, that's the flashlight. I just brought that in. I just upset some nerds. Sorry.
Also, Sam and Bucky couldn't work out this copyright thing. Like, I don't believe that either.
Like they just had a whole series together and they couldn't like, like you could be the like Prime Avengers or the OG Avengers, and yeah, they can't figure out something.
It seemed weird that Bucky would be like, I'm gonna abandon Sam to come join this team that I A didn't really want to join with, and I know I'm working for the bad person now. Like what?
Yeah.
That was a little problem for me here, but
Especially, yeah, he started as an investigation, and in investigation to like we think you're doing something shady. He finds beyond firsthand that they are doing something shady, and then so Valentina's not in that scene though.
Not
So
at the
like,
tower, I don't think. No.
yeah, so maybe she's in prison. I don't. I that's the only way I could kind of see like
I guess that
if
could explain it, but
yeah,
needed to be hinted at, I think, if that's what they were going for there.
yeah. Let's hope. And if Valentina hasn't been announced as a character in any of the other movies, so I don't
I
know.
don't
We'll
know
see.
how they would have had
But
the money to finish the tower without
yeah,
her, though, either then.
well,
I don't know, yeah.
that lucrative Wheaties marketing deal,
I
apparently. So
guess. Cereal's back on the table.
yeah.
Literally.
But all this leads up to the thing that I literally got the most cheer in my theater,
Yes,
which
huge.
is
This one did get a big cheer in ours as well.
you get the visual of whatever this object the computer's talking about, and it's obviously a spaceship coming in, a spaceship that slowly rotates, and during the rotation it shows a four on the side, at which point the Fantastic Four trailer like theme starts playing. And I did there like if you're watching carefully to the credits, you saw that the Fantastic Four First Steps theme was referenced in terms of the music in the movie. And I was
Okay.
actually sitting there with my friend and I'm like, why do they have that in there?
Oh, okay.
No, it kind of gave it away like a minute before they showed this thing.
Interesting, interesting. And they zoomed in on the interdimensional ship, and we saw Kelsey Grammer as the Beast, and Photon, and Maria Rambeau. No, Monica Rambeau. Sorry about that. So were you excited when you saw this at the end?
Yeah, it wasn't the smoothest of transitions to like you said, like this is interdimensional. At the same time, it is exactly the kind of like end credit scenes that was so great in the early MCU that like having seen this, like I realized I was missing that thing of just give me the slightest hint of like what else is coming next.
Hated it.
Not a fan. Okay.
It was my least favorite part of the movie.
Really?
Yeah. I don't like so in our theater they probably yours too they had the preview for Fantastic Four ahead
Yeah.
of it, right? And even though we watched it in IMAX, I don't know if you even saw it in IMAX or not, but they had like they've been re for like 2 months now they've been redoing even like the IMAX intro itself as a Fantastic Four IMAX intro, like it's not
Oh
even the
wow.
IMAX intro anymore. And then it ended with that, and everybody was like, "Yes, like that's." Unless I'm wrong, I'm assuming though, like this is we're gonna get their movie, and then their universe is going to go to shit. Planet's going to go to shit because of Galactus somehow, and then they're going to like end up in the MCU proper, right?
Hmm.
Unlike ours, and I'm like, I just don't like that. Like it, it seriously demotivated me to go watch Fantastic Four
Whoa. All
because
right.
I was like, you already showed me like how that movie ends now. I didn't even get to it. Like, am I wrong on this? Talk me out of the stand.
Well, okay. So you're not wrong at all. But this is so how much of Doomsday slash Secret Wars have you heard of in terms of like the plot and what's going on?
Not much, actually.
So so obviously you saw the very dramatic 5 hour chair reveal, right? I'm hoping a summarized version. You didn't watch all
Yeah,
5 hours.
yeah.
So in that you had obviously these are actors from the X-Men universe. You had like obviously the MCUs. You had the cast of Fantastic Four were all listed in there. So you know in the very next movie they're doing it is the Fantastic Four, MCU proper, and the old X-Men titles. So with that, there's a heavy implication that it is some kind of multidimensional something. Like how much they go through in terms of like how multidimensional it is, we'll
Yeah.
see. There were leaked like early concept photos a while ago of Doomsday and Secret War,
Okay.
and spoilers if you don't want to hear about this, but it basically showed the Secret Wars comics like esque version in the MCU, which is that storyline said that a whole bunch of universes get crushed together into one gigantic comic or sorry content, which
Okay.
there are different regions from different universes where like here is the all zombie from the zombie like instance, and here's the kind of like 1613 I think is the year,
Yeah.
so like the medieval one, and here's they had like X-Men 97 was like another one. So the early concept sketches seem really strongly like there's going to be a moment where all these universes are coexisting and everyone's just going to like in the comics there was kind of a memory wipe for people not to remember where all this came from. This is all oriented by not only just Doctor Doom, God Doom, God Emperor Doom was the title he took in those comics. So everything seems to be saying this is all about these universes somehow melding together, crushing together. And the casting for me really, really confirmed that.
Okay.
So watching this end credits, you're right. It does tell you like what is going to happen in the end of the Fantastic Four. But to me, I already knew it just by seeing those chairs and those names, going like it's at least going to be some of this melding together, crashing together.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess so. It's hard to, that movie is really, I mean, they could do, we're kind of getting into the implications for the bigger one here, but
Yeah.
that movie could really do anything, right? Because you could dig up and exhume the carcasses of like the Fox and Sony movies and like
Yep.
pull people in and have I mean, the Fantastic Four could fight two versions of themselves if they really wanted to go that route.
Including all the old actors, there's already been implications that Tobey Maguire is going to be showing up at some point in Secret Wars. So there you've got the Sony Spider-Man universe, and you've got like the comics did like character meldings together I've never seen before. For example, there was one where the dead spirit of Doctor Strange inhibited Frank Castle, so Punisher. So Punisher had access to basically a like mythical armament where he's
Oh,
like
wow.
making like magical grenades and rocket launchers. So you could do not only just, yeah, these are the previous actors, you could do combinations of them that we've never seen before.
So, Secret Wars first, right? Or is Doomsday first?
Doomsday.
Oh, Doomsday is first. Oh, okay. So Secret Wars could be further down yet. Hmm, okay.
Yeah, and for a character as big as Doom, especially as he was in Secret Wars, I could see having a, I mean, that's the implication that I'm reading is that it's a movie about a villain, this
Hmm.
Doomsday. Like obviously there'll be heroes seen throughout it, but it's you've got to establish this character. What's the backstory? Why are they doing this big giant thing here?
And is Doom going to, this is Robert Downey Jr.'s character, or is he a alternate version of this
Uh,
character? He's going to be
So
the character.
I the casting, as they've said right now, is it's Robert Downey Jr. I would not be surprised at all, especially with as big a casting as that is, if that is a little bit of like a cloak and dagger,
Mhm.
in terms of like
Ah,
maybe yeah, nice.
yes.
Maybe it starts RDJ and then it switches to someone else. Maybe it's RDJ and he like has an epiphany and he becomes Iron Man. Maybe it's RDJ as like a spin-off of Doom who dies and then RDJ gets to come back as Iron Man. Like these are all the things I would not be surprised at any of those from Marvel. So
Hmm.
I know he's going to be in it. RDJ is going to be in it. He'll be Doom for at least one scene. Beyond that, it could be anything.
And origin of Doctor Doom is this is a character that's on our Earth originally, though.
Correct.
So
So
this
he
would be
went to
somebody that would pop up in our MCU as we know it.
yeah, he's tightly correlated with Reed Richards. So he went to school with Mr. Fantastic. He went
Oh,
to
okay.
college with Mr. Fantastic, where it was like a rivalry about who's the most intelligent. But Doctor Doom is also he is from a country, oh God, Latveria,
Light of area, yeah,
and like
yeah.
so he's a little bit Black Panther in terms of like, hey, I've got my own country that I'm also watching over. I've got to like do the best for these people, but unfortunately, the best for his people generally involves hurting others or like proactively attacking others. And then the really popular stories with Doctor Doom it used to be that he was like horrendously disfigured. That's why he always wore the mask. There was stories where the mask got burnt to his face.
Hmm.
But the most recent version of him is that he's so perfectionist that he got a scar on like one of his cheeks, and he's decided that that causes him to be disfigured. It was kind of a big reveal, like what's the disfigurement? He took it off. He's got this like perfect face except for this one scar.
That's funny. That's funny. So if they stick with that origin, which who knows if they will, then would that not also mean he would have to be from the Fantastic Four universe also?
Exactly. So, and like I'm trying to think how officially they've stated this. Like you can tell from the trailer, like Fantastic Four is not our universe, right? It's a
Yeah,
super
right.
retro futuristic New York. You can tell it's similar, but definitely got some differences. So the strong implication, and I think they've said it, is that it is a different universe from ours, which would then tie into the interdimensional.
Yep.
So it's very possible that they could establish Doctor Doom, even if not like the full character, but like, hey, he's a cameo. Hey, like he was this person
Yeah.
Reed is talking about I went to college with, who's off doing these crazy things. Or they could give him a whole scene like this is they could give him an end credits at the end of Fantastic Four since we know how it ends. Um, it's any kind of number of things. So I would not be surprised. In fact, I would almost hope that they establish in some way, shape, or form Doom in that film so that Doomsday becomes even like a better tie-in.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I hope so too. Now to kind of walk through that. He could be, yeah, they could do a lot with him. He could be left behind. I don't know what exactly what's going to happen with Galactus period in that film, but I mean, he could be
Yeah,
he could be like a Surtur and Asgard type thing where he's like left behind on the planet. Like
could
that would
be.
be a really captivating story if they had taken somebody from Asgard and showed the perspective of them like watching their planet be smashed apart and burned while
Right?
Thor escapes. It's like,
Well, I expect and like and I think the trailer has a fantastic shot in Fantastic Four First Steps with Reed getting that question of like, "Are you going to save us?" And he said, "I don't know." And I think that is going to be like a major theme, whether that's for the entire movie there, but probably a theme that carries through all of these is that Reed he wasn't able to save his world, and he's going to use that as a motivation through all the next few films coming up.
right.
And like you're saying, like I would not be surprised if Doom, yeah, he gets left behind somehow. He's able to survive this. If he like does something similar to Reed, but he ends up in a different universe, like it seems very likely they have a lot of options there.
Yeah. I'm just stoked for by the time these two Avengers movies roll through and we find out where everybody's at and the dust settles. And, I've long advocated, prior to you being on the podcast, even really that like I'm really looking at, especially Secret Wars, to like clean the roster of a lot of
Yeah.
these ancillary characters we have out there that were like one post credit scene and like we've never seen them
Hmm.
again. Just bring them back for one scene, kill them off. I'm fine with
Yeah.
that.
Finish it up.
Let's just get them gone. So, that all being said, then I wanted to ask you: do you feel like this is an odd time to, with knowing what movies we have rolling up here, those three plus the Spider-Man movie, to bring in a whole new team into the MCU? It's characters that are pre-existing, but like it seems like an odd time to be like, we're launching this new team
Yeah.
to set them on the side so that we can do all these other big things.
Yeah, it's really in it. Well, so I'll go back to the chair thing, which is, because they told us like here's who's surviving the Thunderbolts. That was the first thing, which it's not too bad. I think it was kind of obvious. Um, yeah, it does feel like an odd time, but you got to keep remembering that this entire phase was going to be the Kang Dynasty, and then recovering from Jonathan Majors really hurting that
Yeah.
entire thing. So quite honestly, if they had this, and my understanding is that they've had this script for this movie like for quite some time. They've just kind
Hmm.
of like had it already. I would not be surprised if part of damage control was like, look, Thunderbolts looks really solid. We need another Guardians of the Galaxy-esque new spin-off thing that people can kind of jump in on and get started on something. Yeah, and I also this movie's doing all right at the box office. Did it cross 100 million yet? I think it was getting
Um,
close.
it was like at 80 or 90, I think last I saw. I don't know if that was yesterday or today,
Yeah.
but
Which
yeah,
I
it's a
think
good point.
is
It's new character. It's a new team, but it's
ish. Yeah.
some characters we know. But somebody could come in and watch this if you hadn't seen the other ones.
I think that's probably part of their angle is like, look, it's something there for the true fans, but it's also something new that you could get some people in and kind of get them connected on this new stuff.
Yeah, and then immediately lose them all when we get to the next three movies. They're like, "Who the hell's that?" Oh, don't worry about it. He
I
was this
will
person. This person.
this Fantastic Four, considering it's like kind of the fourth time they're trying this movie, so obviously
Oh
the
yeah.
um if this isn't good, like if this isn't a good movie, just regardless, like it's gonna go so bad, or it'll feel bad because The Fantastic Four is the very first of the Marvel characters. It's Marvel's first family. They've been so iconic, and that's why all the previous movies have felt so poor because it's like, did you see The Incredibles? It's
Yeah.
just that. That's Fantastic Four. Just do that again.
Yeah, literally,
Um,
right?
so like they gotta get this right.
It's just the unadaptable property. It's what it is. Yeah. I don't know. So, I was going to ask you here too, is this, I'm not as familiar with the full Marvel history on this, but like, is this team that they have created, they're calling the New Avengers, is this like a version of the Dark Avengers? I mean, I'm more familiar with like Bullseye and some other characters being on that team, but like, is this a version of that? But they seem like not dark or villainous with the new take we have on them here. Like, they're all kind of
Yeah,
lighthearted buffoons. So,
yeah. In the comics they did have the title The Dark Avengers. In the comics, it also traces back to Norman Osborn, kind of starting up this team, and kind of like a little bit of what Valentina's doing in terms of like there are no Avengers. Like that was also Norman Osborn, although he actually like constructed and got it to that state so that he could rush in with like these are the new Avengers.
hmm,
So they're in the comics, and it's a lot of this actually roster. It's not too different.
okay. All right. Um, Yeah, I think we covered everything I have. Just I'm regardless of what I said about the post credit, I'm still super excited about Fantastic Four. I had Thunderbolts as my number four movie I wanted to see this year, so and it has been the best of the five I've seen so far this year, I will
Nice.
say. Fantastic Four, I think I had it two or three. I think it was
Hmm.
my number two, so I'm excited for that one as well. But anything else you want to say about this one before we slap a number on this bad boy?
Um,
Anything we didn't
I
cover?
I've never laughed so hard at a meth addiction, which I feel very conflicted about, but that chicken scene, that is going to go down in history.
Uh, this was a really top-notch movie.
Yeah.
It was a top-notch movie. It really was. Like, I'd have to look at the list of the chronology again, which I don't have pulled up in front of me here, but just thinking of like, was this better than Brave New World, like you said? Absolutely. Was
Oh
it
yeah.
better? You know, just like kind of keep going back to be like, what was this the best movie since? I'd be actually now I'm curious.
I
Now I got to look it up.
I heard it get quoted as the best game or the best movie since Endgame. Um, and since Endgame to this, I put Shang-Chi up there pretty high and Guardians 3 as well. So it's for me, it's kind of a fight between those ones that I think this and Guardians in my mind are pretty equivalent,
I
just in
mean,
terms of like how good they are.
I guess Deadpool and Wolverine was pretty good also. So that I'd have to consider that one.
That was I forgot about that one being. I'm still
But
getting used to that being part of this.
otherwise, Ant-Man 3, Guardians
Oh
3,
God,
Marvels, Captain America, Brave New World, Black Panther 2, Thor 4, Doctor Strange. I don't even know, was that Doctor Strange 2 or 3 2? I don't even know what
two.
that was. Spider-Man No Way Home, Eternals, Shang-Chi, Black Widow, Spider-Man Far From Home, Endgame. It's definitely in the conversation of one of the best ones since
Hmm.
Endgame. I was big on Shang-Chi too. I'm happy to hear you were
Yeah.
big on that one also. Can we get a freaking sequel on that,
Oh
by the
man,
way?
I know.
Or a follow-up from what movie was it that they were at the end of? Was that the
Yeah.
Marvels? No, was that the TV show The Marvels or Miss
No, no,
Marvel?
no.
What was that?
Well, the kind of rings were implied a little bit, but it wasn't Shang-Chi.
No, it was yeah, it was at the end. Remember, it was like um,
Oh,
or am I remembering it backwards? Maybe it's at the end of
yeah.
Shang-Chi where they had the other people there. I don't remember. Either way,
Shang-Chi had Captain Marvel,
yeah,
Bruce
Wong. I
Banner,
think it's
and
some other
Wong.
people. Okay, must be must be what I'm thinking of there then. All right. Well, it's good regardless. So here we go. Let's put a number on this bad boy. Dan, you want to
Uh,
go first? You want to go
uh,
second?
I'll go first. I'm
All
gonna
right.
give this an 8.5.
8.5. Missed the mark. Any additional reasoning? Or are you okay with? with what you've already said here?
I mean, it's something I'm excited to like show my family. It is not something that I'm forcing them into the theaters to see. Like that's a 9+ in my mind. So
Okay.
I can't wait to show them, but it'll probably not be a rush out to the theater to see.
Excellent. Excellent. Let's see here. I have this at a 9.1, Dan.
Um,
9.1. I think the biggest compliment I can give it, besides just, and I guess it is tied into its emotional impact that it had, especially in our theater, just as an experience. But like, I can't think of another movie from the MCU where I both was so sure of what was going to be the exact plot of the movie and also was so surprised by that movie at the same time.
hmm,
Which is really like one of the higher marks I can give it. Just it was the buddy comedic team up movie that I thought it was, but also was way more emotional than I thought this movie was going to be. Because I don't feel like there was a ton of advertising that that was going to be the case either.
no,
So um, it was good. It was really good. I think it was a high mark back for
yeah,
Marvel again. Super excited. I think we said during the Brave New World podcast already that like maybe this would be the one that's kind of back to where they had like the full plan sketched out and the time to put into the
yes.
movies, and hopefully this is showing us that. So
Fingers crossed. That's what I'm hoping.
yeah, I'd agree as well. All right, well, that's gonna average us out to 8.8 for the two of us here tonight, which
But we're gonna
is,
round it up to a 10, so it's
yeah,
just
I
immediately the
think to the
best
nearest
movie.
10 that gives it a 10 out of 10.
Done.
So yeah, absolutely, which is either way, it's a pretty good score. So that's now I'm kind of curious. Let's see. Our Captain America score was 4.83,
Yeah.
so not so great there. And oh, I'd have to dig down here. I don't know how quick I could find this other one here. I was curious if I could find um Deadpool. Deadpool was a 9.167 with three hosts. So, ooh, pretty close.
Impressive.
Pretty close. So, all right, that is it for us here, I think, at Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing. That's been Dan, our resident Marvel nerd. And this has been Cody down here. We're recording this on Star Wars Day, so I guess we could throw in a May the 4th be with you as well as we go through.
May the
All
fourth
right.
be with you.
Take care, everybody. We will see you next time.
All right.